Good evening. I'd like to call the October 17th regular board meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. And thank you all for attending this evening. Mr. Chambers, when you're ready, if you'll please call roll.
Mr. Nichols? Here. Ms. Pritchard? Here. Mr. West? Here. Mr. Ross? Here. Ms. Parkhurst?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the September 19th, 2022 regular meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. Are there any additions, changes, or comments regarding the minutes from the last board meeting? Hearing none, Mr. Chambers, please call roll.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West? Yes. Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
Right, I'll make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Mr. West. Are there any additions, removals, or modifications that anyone would like to make? I would like to see us remove the executive session, letter I, between action items H and J.
I'll second. Or do I have to make a motion? Okay.
I'll make the motion to remove the, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Any other additions or changes, modifications? Mr. Chambers?
I'm taking the motion for the modifications at this moment. Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. West? Yes. Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
And to close out the approval of the consent agenda, Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. West? Yes. Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers, for keeping us in order. Mr. Sable?
I'm excited this evening to welcome up representatives from Medina High School to talk about 21st century learning and teaching. We've got a presentation on our English language and art collaboration over at the high school, as well as Dr. Tadona is going to share with us a little bit about her student SOAR advisory group, which I've had the pleasure of getting to meet with before in the past. So at this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Tadona, Kelly Kreiner, Lauren Smith up to the front.
Other one. Hello, I'm Elisa Tadona, the principal at the high school, and I have Lauren Grandstaff with me, who is a junior at the high school. So we're going to kick it off, and then I'll hand it over to our English and art teachers. So today we'd like to talk a little bit about our transition that we are making from our principal advisory team to our student SOAR team. And the reason for that is because I greatly believe, along with the rest of the staff at the high school, that our student voice matters. One of the things that we always preach is that we believe that our students are all capable of learning, growing, and excelling if they feel safe, supported, and cared for. But one of the things that we need to do is ask them how they feel safe, supported, and cared for, and what they want their learning to look like if we're ever going to meet that goal that we have set forth for ourselves. So what that means is that we created this vision of creating a student team filled with unique perspectives, a variety of experiences, all different grade levels. It is a very unique and diverse group. And the rationale for this group is to help impact the school. It's to give them, our student population, a voice and what they experience every single day when they walk through our doors. So how it was created, we first created last year, and it started by getting teacher and staff input. So I simply put out that vision of having a unique perspective of student voices that want and are desired in having a role in what Medina High School looks like. So then teachers submitted a variety of names. I think I got somewhere between 80 and 90 names. And then I sent out just those names, and they kind of like voted, if you will, on who they would like to see on the team. I also then took those names to the administrative team and the counseling team to get their input, and we dwindled it down to about 20 students last year. Now, since we graduated our seniors, because it is a team of freshmen through seniors, we sent that out again, but just to fill the remaining seats. But because of how many people we got, it grew to 28. So we have a team of 28 this year total, which is pretty neat. And after that team was decided, I met with each student either individually or in a small group and explained the purpose of the team, why they were chosen, and what my hope is from the team. And I obviously gave them an opportunity to ask questions. I asked them what they wanted to get out of it. And then I sent a letter home so that parents knew a little bit about it. And then they had to sign off saying, yes, we're interested in this. And that's kind of where we are today. And we've had our first meeting this year last week, which I think went really well. So last year's topics that we discussed was student well-being. This was right after full-blown into the school year from COVID. So we spent a lot of time talking about just student overall well-being. And our students had an opportunity to give their voice in what our Zenden has been kind of transformed into, and Mr. Ron Blue was a part of that meeting. So each meeting we kind of bring in, whether it's a teacher or some type of staff member, into a variety of meetings so that they can see what it's about, but also get our students' perspectives on whatever topic they would like as well. So one of the meetings was on redistricting, and Mr. Sable was kind enough to join us, and he was able to pick our students' brains and get their input on what redistricting could look like. We also talked about the importance of building relationships and what that can look like in the school, both in the classroom and extracurriculars and in the hallways. And we talked about our PBS, positive behaviors, interventions, and supports, and what that looks like with our students, with our teachers, and how it's taught to students. So for this year, we had another unique opportunity last year where we had a lot of staff openings. And one of the biggest openings we had was in our English department, and we were fortunate enough to know that we were going to have an opening pretty early on, so it was one of our first big hires. So again, believing in student voice, we put together a student team, many of which came from our, what was then called our principal advisory team, to be a part of that. And in those conversations, it led to just this pivotal moment of seeing that our students really do know what they want in our teachers and what they want to learn and how they want to learn it. So what our candidates had to do was teach a demo lesson to a group of students. There were probably about 15 of them. Lauren was part of that as well. About 15 of them, I think, in the class to model the student body. And to hear their reflections and remarks afterwards was probably one of the highlights of my whole year, because they say all the things that we've been saying in our SOAR meetings, in our ATM meetings, which is what we want school to be, what we dream it to be. So that was one of those light bulb moments of, well, why aren't we talking about instruction and teaching and learning more intentionally with our students? So that is how we have transitioned this year into what will be our student SOAR team, which, as everyone knows, is what we've been working with throughout the district for 21st Century Learning. So we've also partnered with the Department of Instruction. So Mrs. Cassidy has joined us, and we'll have a few other visitors throughout our year just to get their own perspectives on what they would like to see, and again, to pick our students' minds. And the goal is just to reimagine school. If society is changing, but school is this huge ship that takes a lot to turn, we need our students' voice and our student input when we are going to implement new things, new ideas. So one of the questions that I left our students with in our last meeting was, when you graduate, what do you hope you have learned from Medina High School? And I don't think it's going to be all the content things that maybe some of our teachers hope it will be, but it's going to be more of the life lessons that they've learned. And some of those things, if we know up front what they hope to learn, we can make sure that they walk out those doors with it. So what I would like to do is hand it over to Lauren Grandstaff, who is one of our juniors. She's going to just share a little bit about her perspective in the team.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Grandstaff, and I'm currently a junior at MHS. Last year, I had the privilege of being part of both the English teacher interviews and the student SOAR team. I am so grateful to have been able to join both of these teams, as they have given me the opportunity to have a positive impact on MHS, which is something I care deeply about. The English teacher interviews gave the students a chance to aid in shaping the future of MHS. These interviews were a welcome change, as this was one of the first times my peers and I had had a say in interviewing the teachers and the selection of new staff members. We relished the opportunity to share our thoughts on the teaching styles and lesson formatting, as well as the faculty's perspectives. Throughout the night, while the faculty was still interviewing the potential candidate in the room next door, my classmates and I just kept on repeating how impactful it was for us to have our opinions and recommendations not only be heard, but also taken into consideration while choosing the new staff member. Both the staff and students also strived to listen to each other, not to respond, but to understand, which aided in the ability to value the differences in each other's learning and teaching perspectives. Similarly to the English interviews, the Student SOAR team also gives the students a voice at the high school. This team is made up of individuals from all different backgrounds with essential yet diverse viewpoints, which makes this team unlike anything I've ever been a part of before. We are able to meet, discuss relevant topics in the school, such as mental health and building behavior, and form solution-oriented responses to these day-to-day challenges. I believe that last year's meetings were extremely successful, and I am incredibly delighted to know that that was only the beginning. This year, we are back and better than ever, ready and willing to listen to everyone's perspectives, create long-term solutions, and have a positive impact on MHS. I'm so proud to be part of this team, and I'm looking forward to seeing all that we will accomplish. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak tonight and taking the time to listen to my perspective.
Isn't she great? We just wanted to know if you guys had any questions about anything. Lauren will gladly answer all of them. I'm just kidding.
I have one. Are you nervous?
A little bit, yeah.
You look nervous. You did very good.
She did great.
I appreciate you taking the time to come tonight and share your presentation with us, and I'm so happy to hear that there is this student SOAR team. It's important, the Board of Education always says that it's important to hear what the student's voice is, and that this lets students know they do have a voice, and I think this is a way to let the students know for sure that they do. I think sometimes maybe words are said, but action is not taken, and now we're seeing the action is being taken, and things are happening because of that. So that's very important. So thank you for that. Dr. Chanel, thank you for your part in that as well.
Of course.
It's nice to see you tonight, Lauren. Yeah. Yeah, school leader advocating for the student body in collaboration with the administration and the teaching staff, and that's exactly what we want to see, not only at the high school, but across the district as well. Thank you.
If there's no other questions, I can call up our next. Okay. So I'd like to call up Mrs. Kelly Kreiner and Mrs. Lauren Smith, and they are going to be talking about a cross collaboration they had. So Lauren is one of our art teachers, and Kelly is one of our English teachers, and they started this collaboration last year, I think just out of a conversation we were having in one of our meetings, and the two of them being the very driven and collaborative individuals and passionate individuals that they are, really took it and ran, and it has continued through this year. So I'm gonna let them talk a little bit about that, and I'm sure you'll love all of it.
Yep. Okay, thank you so much for having us here to talk about the Mhs Creative Exchange. And this did start from a discussion that Kelly and I had in one of our CDC meetings. We both had a common goal, and that goal was to stretch our students' creative thinking ability and have more ideas for our visual and written work. So we had that common goal, and through our discussions, we developed the Mhs Creative Exchange. We completed 2 projects last year, and we are on our 2nd this year. And it's been so much fun to collaborate and see the work that's coming out from our students. So we'd like to tell you a little bit about the projects in more detail. We were awarded the Highlighting Innovation Award last year for this project. And we're hoping that it expands and grows. Right now, it's just between the ELA and the art department, but we see this expanding into other content areas. So the Creative Exchange project aims to help the students discover connections and inspiration across disciplines through cross-curricular projects. So far, we have a website that we started to develop, and it is a work in progress. The QR code that's on the screen, I will also have at the end of the presentation. So we started last year, and last year, the first project, we had the sophomore honors language arts students write poems, and those poems were shared with my AP honors art students. And they went through the poems, read every poem, and at first I was wondering if they'd be excited to read all the poems, and it was beyond my expectations. They really enjoyed reading the poetry because they made connections to their own research for their portfolios, for their art portfolios, and then they also found personal connections. So the artwork that was created, they generated unique visual representations of the poetry. This included oil paintings, mixed media drawings, even three-dimensional work. The students had total control over the design of the piece. So they took into consideration the materials, the processes, and the concepts while respectfully representing the students' poetry. And again, this is all on our website, so you could read through the students' written work and then the amazing artwork that they created to represent it.
And we were in the midst, the students actually were writing for a poetry contest when Laura and I started talking, and then that was optional. They could submit it, they had to do the assignment, but it was optional to submit it for the contest, and then it was optional to pass them on to the art students. But when the artwork came back, it was amazing to see how excited my students were to see their words put into a visual, like how well the students matched what they were thinking, and the look on their faces was really exciting.
So the second part of the project, we reversed the process. So the ELA students took artwork from a variety of art courses that we picked out that were especially narrative, and the ELA students then wrote short stories about the artwork, so that was inspired by the artwork. Additionally, this whole collaboration just showed how much that that collaboration opens up more avenues for creative expression. And the work is beautiful to see, and then to read it next to it, it was really exciting for the students to see the short stories that were written.
So these short stories were written, this was towards the end of the school year, so you can see just how students were starting to advance in their word choice, as well as describing. Part of the assignment was to choose the art piece and develop a theme and then write about it. One really neat thing about these is these stories they were written in a writing slam in one class period. So they chose the art, wrote the story. They have been edited before they went onto the website, but for the most part, it was a one period, pick your art and write. And I think that pressure sometimes, it's exciting because there's not any pressure. They got to pick what they wanted to write. If they didn't want to submit it, they didn't have to. But the idea that I get to choose the art, I get to choose the story, they found really exciting. So this was a really fun one. They've all been fun.
Yeah, they have. Okay, so the first project we did this year was a postcard project. On my end, my Painting One students, they designed watercolor postcards of a place that they felt happy and content. It could be a place that they visited in the past or one that they hope to visit in the future. The one that's featured on the slideshow is of the Medina Fair, which I thought was very sweet. The students made a whole list of different locations. At first, they made mind maps, and they wrote out what imagery they could use to represent the location. And then once they chose the location, they found reference images and painted these in watercolor and in pen. So you can see her process. She has a grid drawing, and it slowly develops. And then we are putting these in a slideshow so it flips back and forth so you could read the composed messages that the English students then wrote.
So the focus for the language arts students was to use word choice to create a desired mood. So we went down to the art hallway where they were displayed, and students took a picture of 1 or 2 or 3 that they thought they might want to work with, and we came back to our room, and they brainstormed words that would help create the desired mood. So when they looked at this, how did it make them feel? How did they want someone reading their writing to feel? And then they wrote, it was supposed to be about 50 words. That was a struggle because it's less than you think. I also didn't know when we first came up with this that a lot of students didn't know what a postcard is. So I said, it's like writing a text, but you get this picture. It never occurred to me that they wouldn't know what a postcard was. And the stamps, they were fun. I put a stamp and said, if you can find a stamp that's representative of where you might be, like what the stamp might look like. So then they used some research to try to make the stamp match, like where they might be mailing that from.
So since we ended with, you talked about mood, our next project, so we are in the middle of a collaboration, it's not done yet. My students are creating paintings in their Painting One class. They had to design a painting that would help the viewer feel a certain way. So they chose, okay, when I paint this and the viewer looks at it, what do you want that viewer to feel? And then we talked about color theory and how different colors will emphasize a different feeling or mood. So they just finished these paintings, and we are now sharing them with the English students. And again, they're going to write short stories. And the fun part will be to see if the artist's intent and the writer's intent align, or if the intended mood for the piece is different or it's the same. But the students are very excited to read the short stories that will be made inspired by their paintings that they started this year.
And that's been part of our, when we first started we talked a lot about academic vocabulary and words like mood that cross. You're in an English class and you hear the word mood, and you have to write a critical analysis of a story or something. But when we started talking about, you see that in art, you see it in music, how does it make me feel? I was hoping, and we have been seeing more engagement, and they get to choose the mood, which has been exciting as well.
Which comes to, the whole collaboration part and
Right.
how everything is intertwined. And I'm hoping that we're showing the students that our content areas overlap way more than they may realize. So through these projects, we can show the students that, we can all collaborate and learn more about our content areas.
So in the last slide just reminds us, and I think these are pretty evident, but that collaboration across curriculums helps empower students to problem solve, discover connections, think critically, and innovate, which aligns with the portrait of a B competencies.
And we hope that this is just the start of the Mhs Exchange project. We already have other staff members that are collaborating across curriculums and are excited to add to the website and showcase the work that they're doing. So we want to encourage more teachers from different content areas to collaborate in projects that stretch our students' thinking and help them discover meaningful cross-curricular connections. So please, I hope you check out our website that has all of the fantastic work. It is a work in progress, so keep that in mind. We're going to keep adding on to the website, and hopefully you'll come back and see more cross-curricular projects with, science and art, or maybe social studies and art or English, so that we're all working together. We would gladly answer any questions you may have about our project.
What is the website?
The website,
Creative Exchange?
The Creative Exchange, and if, I don't know if we have it linked. It may have it linked.
Yeah, it's Mhs Creative Exchange.
Yes, there should be a link.
Okay.
MHS
Yeah,
Creative.
I just wanted to say it's
Yeah.
totally awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it really
Thank you.
is. And I think one of the most impressive parts is, we go through curricular adoptions and we talk about the materials that our students are going to be using. And our students are creating the curriculum for this exchange, and they're working with each other's work. And I think I'm really impressed by that. I'm proud of the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a question. There are actually two. First, were your students kind of like, I don't know about this at first?
With my AP students, I told them we're going to read poetry, and they all went, and they groaned. But I have to tell you, when I took out all the poems and I scattered them around at different tables, and I said, okay, just start reading, and there were students that they were passing them back and forth, and we're like, oh, you got to read this one. Oh, you got to read this one. Or they're making piles of, okay, these are the ones I connect with. These, no, I'm not going to pick those. But it was so cool to see that engagement where, yes, there were many groans at first, but they really enjoyed it, and a lot of them said that was one of their favorite assignments. And the possibilities of like the options was great, because I couldn't have predicted what they came up with. And the poetry was what really drove the creative process.
So are they asking, when are we going to do the next one now?
Those students were seniors and they have moved on, so I'm hoping to do it again with my next group.
They love
That
the
was last
postcard
year.
project.
The postcard
though.
project, yes.
Yeah.
Are you planning on maybe having put them in the hall, put everything out where people can actually see?
We're in the works of having an exhibit to show this. We're hoping to present it at the Pancake Breakfast in the future. I think that will have a good audience. But then we were looking into other venues to showcase the student work, the visual work, and
Part
the
of what
written
we
work.
thought we could spend the innovation grant on was to buy some things to display, so that like boards and things to put, and we'd need to blow up maybe the written work so you can see it, not have to get right on it. So that was part of how we thought we might spend the money.
Looks like a really fun and
It has been fun.
great way to get kids interested in thinking, and so thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate both of you coming tonight to present this. I'm really looking forward to checking out the website and the other projects. I noticed one of the paintings up there for the short stories I actually purchased during the foundation auction that they had. And one of the things that stood out to me when you were speaking about your collaboration was giving the students choice. That was one of the topics in the Empower book that the speaker presented on opening day, about giving students choice and how some teachers might fear that. And I'm happy to see that you embrace that. And I really hope that other teachers and classes will also seek to collaborate and do these things, because there is some, like the mood you talked about, there's so much overlap. And for people to take the time to see that and then work their curriculum around that is just so innovative and collaborative. So thank you for taking that first step and being the first ones to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so much.
Thanks.
And next, I'd like to invite Tina Cassidy, our Director of Instruction, up to talk about the state report card. I know you've seen in the media that there's been a lot written about the release of the new state report card. We have been advocates on the state level as well as the local level, both myself as well as other administrators in our district, in working to make improvements and adjustments to the state report card. I'm not going to say the state report card is quite where we want it, but it's definitely an improvement as to where it was. Obviously, we've been through some challenging times in working with collecting data through the pandemic and monitoring student progress. But I'm excited for Tina to present to you today. Our teachers, our educators have really done an outstanding job in working with our students and their families to make sure that education is progressing despite the difficult times. Tina?
So first, let me say that is a hard act to follow. That project is so exciting. We were so excited that they could come and share that with you tonight. It just blows my mind how creative and talented our students are. So that was really fun to see. So state report card. So we have not had a state report card for our district for the past 2 years because of the pandemic. They released them, but all it said was NR, not reported, because the state waived that because of all the difficulties of the pandemic. So this is the first year we've had a report card since 2019. And also, as Erin mentioned, it's a new state report card, so they kind of reworked the report card. Oh, I was waiting for Craig to turn it, and then I realized Okay, so the first new thing about the state report card is that it's no longer an ABC report card. Now they've changed it to a rating system, so you can earn up to 5 stars in every area of the report card. And here are the report card components. They were measuring us this year on achievement, progress, gap closing, graduation, and early literacy. So in achievement this year, our district earned 4 stars. And 4 stars means it exceeds state standards in academic achievement. So we were really pleased with those results. The way that they calculated the achievement score was a little different this year. In the past, what they did was they measured everybody against perfect. So you were able to, here, let me go to the next slide. So as you can see right now, our maximum performance index score was 107 in the state. That used to read 120, and that would mean every student scored perfectly on the state test, which is unrealistic. So now what they've done is they've taken the top 2% of schools in the state, and they've kind of made a curve towards that. So now the top score is 107. We scored 95.5, which put us at 89.1%, which gave us 4 stars. We would have been at 5 stars at 90%, so we were very close. So we are really, really pleased with, as Erin said, everything that went on, that our students still scored that well. When you look at our scores, just the numbers of students that passed the tests, the percentages are lower than they were in the past. But again, that's because of the pandemic. So this kind of measures us against how everybody else was scoring in the state. So it's kind of a truer measure of what we're looking at than just looking at the actual percentage rates, if that makes sense. The next area, the next component of the report card is progress. Progress measures the growth that students make in a year, and we received 5 stars in this area. So that's significant evidence that the district exceeded student growth expectations by a large magnitude. So we're really pleased with that. So we earned the top possible points in both growth and effect size, and so that is why we received 5 stars in progress. In gap closing, we also received 5 stars. The way they measured gap closing this year was a little different as well. More components were added to gap closing, but it still says that we significantly exceeded state standards in closing educational gaps. So if you look here, and I know it's kind of hard to read, the print is small, but some of the things that they added to gap closing were all the gifted indicators. They added the chronic absenteeism, and they also have in there, as they had in the past, the math achievement and the math progress for all of our subgroups to make sure that they're making growth. And again, our final percentage point was 75.9. To get 5 stars, you needed 60%. So we were well above the range where you needed 5 stars. So we're really pleased again with the growth our students are making. Graduation, this indicator didn't change as much, but we received 5 stars, which means we significantly exceed state standards and graduation rates. If you look there, you can see our cohorts rate. 4-year graduation rate is 98.5, which is excellent. So we're really pleased with our graduation rate. In early literacy, we received 3 stars, which means we meet state standards in early literacy. If you look, we had 75% of our students pass the reading portion of the ELA assessment. 40% of our students showed improvement over a period of 4 years, and we had 100% of our students promoted to 4th grade. So this one's a little lower. Again, the pandemic had an effect on that. Some of the students' early skills in literacy were disrupted by the pandemic, but we're working to catch that up and make sure our students are learning at the highest levels. So report card components that are not yet available, the overall rating. Next year, we are going to have an overall district rating, which means they'll say, you know, in every component you had so many stars, but then overall as a district, you earned this many stars. And that there will be half stars in that as well, so you could be a 4.5 star district or a 3.5 star district. So we'll see how that goes. And then college, career, workforce, military readiness, that is not coming until 24-25, but that is going to be similar to the prepared for success component of the report card as in the old report card, if that makes sense. And that's all there is. So overall, we're very pleased with the progress that we made.
Thank you, Mrs. Cassidy. Mr. Sable, you had mentioned that it's better than it was. Not to put you on the spot, but do you or Mrs. Cassidy have something that you would like to see different about the report card?
One of the areas that I would like to see some improvement on is our third grade, the early literacy report card. And I know we're doing a lot of work in early literacy. If you remember, over the pandemic, we had to do a learning plan, how we were going to catch students up. And one of the things that we did was we implemented a rigorous professional development program for teachers. So that's something that we're working on. Sarah Jackson in our department is also currently working with Tracy Swantek, our curriculum specialist, who they're going to do a K-5 ELA adoption, which I think will really help. We're going to make sure that we're hitting those foundational skills really hard. So we are doing a lot of work in that area.
Yeah, one of the conversations that we've been having at the state level is on the gap closing measurements. And we did very well on that part of the state report card. But I think many of the district leaders across the state just believe that's a very essential piece of the report card, making sure that all students are achieving and looking at all kinds of districts, the suburban, the urban, and how that gap closing is truly measuring student success.
Thank you. And I know that this report card comes out late versus in the summer, I guess, after school is already out, and is a tool for us. But Mr. Sable, when you talk about those gap closing, we need to have other interventions and tools in place, correct, to really measure that, and we do as a district. Okay, thank you.
Right, the state report card is one measurement. We rely on many measurements throughout the course of the school year to assess our students' progress, and the measurements that we utilize are ongoing, where the state report card is a one-time measurement.
I have one question. Will the state raise the percentages like next year?
So
like
for the achievement component, yes.
Yeah,
So if
okay.
the top 2% of districts score better, that 107 number will be higher.
Okay.
Yeah, so that will always go up as achievement across the state goes up.
The same with the gap closing, because I mean 69.5. I mean, is that do you see that jumping much higher?
So that won't go up. What will go up is the benchmark percentages for kids. So what they do is they set benchmark percentages for every subgroup, and those go up. So then we wouldn't get those points, so our percentage would go down, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But yes,
Thank you.
those do go up every
All right,
year
thank you.
as they try to close the gap. Yeah.
Do we know what'll go into the overall rating when that comes out for after this year?
So 50% of it is going to be achievement and progress, and the other 50% will be all the other components. That's how it will be, that's okay. It'll be like, I'll show you all the components again. So achievement and progress, so it'll be gap closing, graduation, early literacy, and then the college, career force, and military readiness. So, yeah.
Thank you.
And we are in a partnership with the city for the Recreation Center, which includes the maintenance and upkeep of the Recreation Center. The city currently operates the Recreation Center, but it is our district property. And we have some major projects that need to occur in order to upkeep those facilities. And I'd like to invite Mr. O'Cole up to talk about one that we are currently looking at in collaboration with the city.
Well, I get to follow a lot of good news tonight. So I'm bringing the bad news. I have pictures. I put them in the board update for the last 2 weeks, but I just wanted to speak to you tonight on the status of the pool. As you can see, the Diamond Bright material in the leisure pool is in a lot worse shape than the competition pool. But the pictures of the competition pool, it has water in it. You can't really see how bad it is. This Diamond Bright material has a life expectancy of around 10 years, so anywhere from 8 to 11 years. The competition pool on the bottom is the original Diamond Bright from when we built the facility in 2002. The leisure pool the Diamond Bright was replaced in 2011. So it's lived its life. Unfortunately, this is a very expensive and time-consuming process. This process will be an 8-week shutdown for the rec center when they do this. They would like to do this project over the summer when we have the city pool available for rec center members to use as an alternative site for swimming. We would like to do them both at the same time. In doing that, you save the downtime mobilization fees that you're now paying when you mobilize workers on a site. So that would be reasons we'd do both pools at the exact same time. Hoping that it would be more cost competitive and we'd get a better rate doing them both at the same time. The thing to consider, I guess, is this project, in talking with the consultant for the Brand Setter and Carroll and Company is the consultant we would like to use on this project. Like I said, it's a very time-consuming and lengthy project. So these are the items. Do you want to talk about the addition as well? This particular project is about a $750,000 project. So that would be a 50-50 according to the joint operating agreement. The rec center would be, or the city would be responsible for half of that, and the schools would be responsible for the other half. The other project that we're looking at completing with the rec center is the rec center was awarded a grant to do an addition onto the current facility. So they're looking at a 2,000 square foot, be like a 3-wall addition to the front of the rec center, which would be for a weight room, would be what they'd use the space for. So they'd bring the weights from the upstairs and bring them down onto the first floor. They're thinking that would cut down on some of the noise that they get complaints from some of the members when they're running up there. If the weights are dropping, it sounds like somebody's coming through the roof. So they'd like to put that on the first floor. And they were awarded a grant for this. So this project, the second project, will not be an expense to the district, but it will change the footprint of our facility. Dave Chambers and I worked with our attorneys to come up with some language so that we have some control of the project, get to approve all the plans, and once the construction is complete, then it'll roll into our old joint operating agreement to be just a continuing joint operating agreement with the new footprint. So that project, that one, they have to get under contract by 2024. So we have a little bit of time on that one. The Diamond Bright is one that I'd like to, by the next board meeting, bring to you a RFQ to go to the public for bidding on that process.
And both these projects would have to be approved by the school board, including the rec center expansion. So we'll be bringing you more details on that. One thing we're very conscious about, and I know the conversation is had with the city as well, is with us looking at redistricting and facilities, the confusion that can be caused or when construction's occurring over at the rec center, and maybe the misinterpretation that those are district funds when they're not. What's different this time than the last time when the city was looking at a potential expansion is this time it's grant funded, and like Ryan said, they have a very set timeline or they lose those grant dollars.
Yeah, and we have also asked them that when they start this project that they put some signage out to make sure that the community knows that this is paid for through grant funding and not through our joint operating agreement.
Thank you. As part of that addition, though, because it is our facility, I know the project needs to be approved by the board, but does the district also have approval over the design of that, since it is part of our facility and footprint?
Yeah, we do, and I shared that in last week's board. I'll put it in the new one, the preliminary designs that they have put out. It's a much better, I mean, if you remember from the last time where they had roof lines that didn't match up and just, it was not a good design. I think this one's much more appealing to the street, if that's the appropriate term. It will have a flat roof, but it'll meet the pitch of the existing roof that's there, and then a flat roof, so it won't look like it was Frankensteined onto the side of the building. I think the last one that the board saw was pretty broken up. It had multiple roof lines, and it didn't look like it belonged to the rec center. I think this design that they put out, the preliminary, is a very nice design, so I'm happy with the preliminaries, but you will have final approval of that. Any other questions?
On the pool resurfacing, you said it'd be like a 50-50 split between Medina City Schools and the city, correct?
Medina, that's right.
Would that be right up front, or would that be like us getting reimbursed?
Yeah, we front it.
We front it, and then we get
yes.
reimbursed after it's complete.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the reason the leisure pool always looks so much more worn than the competition pool is the foot traffic. You don't have the foot traffic that you have in the competition pool. They're not touching the bottom. This picture here that's up here is that jet walk. So that's where you constantly have people walking through the whirlpool, and that's why the just foot traffic wears the Diamond Bright surface off.
Got a quick question on the resurfacing. I think if you scroll up just a little bit more on there, it mentions that there was a second coat done in 2011, and it started to fail 2 to 3 years. Seems like after that.
Mm-hmm.
I know you mentioned putting the coat on is expected 10 years, but is it the starting to fail after 2 to 3 years? Is that usually expected, or was that just because it was the second coat, or do you not know?
I'm not 100% sure, but
Okay.
that is a question that we've asked, and talking with the consultant. So this is where it gets pretty technical. You can actually see on this picture the blue that's falling off. That is a color. That's how they color code or add color to the Diamond Bright surface. The Diamond Bright is actually still adhering to the side of the pool. What is falling off is the color, and it did fail. What they would like to say prematurely, but as I talked, Ms. Pritchard asked me this weekend about the warranty. The warranty on the Diamond Bright material itself is 1 year. but it has a life expectancy of 8 to 11 years, so.
Awesome, thank you.
Ryan, you never mentioned the hot tub. Is that okay? Does that need any work?
That's a good question. I never thought to ask about the hot tub. I don't know that it, I will have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
It's not on any of the information we've looked at.
Okay.
I'll get back to you. I don't have a good answer.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't think we have any more homework for you other than that.
Other than reminding me that we have a hot tub, yes.
Right.
And the last item I have to share with the board this evening is just a brief redistricting and facilities update. We have worked to develop a redistricting and facilities timeline. The initial feedback that we've received from staff members as well as from parents and community members are questions about how quickly is this process going to occur. Of course, anytime you're talking about this kind of change within a school district, it creates some level of anxiety, whether it's excitement about the change or whether it's hesitation about the change. So we wanted to make sure that we were clear in the kind of timeline we were looking at in terms of the redistricting and facilities process. This is not something that's going to be happening in a year's time. We will need passage of a bond issue in order for this to move forward. So just this evening at 5:30, I actually sent out to our families the timeline that we're showing up here and that I'm sharing with the board to hopefully clarify that information. What I do want to make clear, and it is listed within this timeline, and I've said this in the past, we have to redistrict our elementary buildings. We don't have a choice with that. That we have buildings that have reached or are reaching capacity, while we have other buildings that have room in them, have empty classrooms. So no matter what happens with the passage of a bond and moving forward, we know we have to redraw our elementary boundaries. The reason why I say that is because whether the bond issue passes or fails could impact this timeline. And what I mean by that is this timeline currently is based on moving forward with the yellow plan, which we had made a decision towards approximately a month ago. If we get into next fall, which per this plan is when a bond issue and operating levy would potentially go up onto the ballot and those were to fail, I would anticipate that we could and possibly would move more quickly to redraw the boundaries at the elementary levels, knowing that the community doesn't support the funds to do the yellow plan, which would mean adjusting lines to decrease student enrollment at the buildings that are reaching capacity and moving students into the buildings where there's room. So I just think it's important that people know that that needs to happen and that this timeline is going to be something that we'll continue to update as the process moves forward, and it is pending some of the decisions that are made not only by the district but by our community as well. But again, it's a very exciting time. We are in the process of working with the state of Ohio as well as with the architects. They are continuing to work on the enrollment studies. That's actually what we're waiting for right now. Once we have those enrollment studies, we'll be moving forward here in the late fall, early winter to pull the community back into this conversation and talk about more specifics about what the yellow plan is, to get feedback of what exactly the plan may or may not look like. So we've got exciting stuff coming up. What's that? I think when they come out, we can talk about them, yeah. Yeah, the enrollment studies, you have to take them with a grain of salt. You know, they're based off of estimates, and they don't project development that isn't already on the books. So there could be land and property that very well in the future could be housing that they won't include in those projections if they're not already slated and stamped for new development. So those are all things we will need to take in account for and consideration of, and work with these cities and townships as we move forward with this process. I assume that's what you were referring to, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sable. It is very exciting, and it's nice just even as a board member to have this timeline now. We've talked a lot about this, but to actually, I'm a visual person, to have a visual of that, I do appreciate. Thank you. All right, if there's no other questions or comments from the board to Mr. Sable, we can move on to Mr. Chamber and the treasurer's communications.
If you look at my financials, I do put these out here for those people who like to read, those people who like to look at visuals, and for, you know, all sorts of people to go ahead and look at. So to start off here, the district bank balance decreased $4.6 million in September to $75.6 million. This is nearly $2 million below last year at this time. The 5-year forecasted revenues were below last September by $86,000. Public utility personal property accounted for this decrease. We did not receive the settlement until the month of October. Last year, we received the settlement in late September. The 5-year forecasted expenditures were above last September by $163,000. Benefits, purchase services, and supplies all accounted for this increase. The sales tax fund balance decreased to $2.5 million. The district spent approximately $116,000, with the majority of expenditures on roofing. The district received a refund from prior year's expenditure of $96,000. The Recreation Center Capital Fund Project, or Capital Fund balance, decreased to $106,000. The district spent $7,000 on a pool motor, parking, and assessment and design, and roofing. The district received $6,000 from the city for reimbursement. The district received $77,000 in investment income for September. This total collection for the current fiscal year is approximately $130,000 above last year at this time. The forecasted funds true day cash balance is estimated to be 210 days. This is down from August by roughly 20 days and below last year by roughly 18 days. And finally, a note to the board, the last operating levy for the school district was approved by taxpayers in November of 2013, with collection beginning in January of 2014. The most recent forecast shows the district will surpass 10 years without collecting new operating monies from our taxpayers, and projects that new money will be, if approved, will begin in January of 25. This has been a major objective of this administration and of the boards of education that we've worked with since that time. Questions?
Mr. Chambers?
Yes.
Remind me again in the report where I can see the interest income. I'm assuming that has decreased because of the state of the economy, but...
Interest income has increased. Interest income is in the revenue section. It's under your other monies. And what, with the economy, you have increased inflation, which the feds have gone and raised the interest rates 4 times, I believe, since March. With that, our investment advisors have also changed investments that we have had. So most of your treasuries are up. We're obtaining CDs that I just obtained a CD that will be purchased here next week, and it's at 4.5%. As a comparison, we just had a CD that came off today, and it was at 0.4%. So, yes, that's where our interest income is coming and increasing.
I know in the past, our Red Tree advisor has come out to visit sometimes the Finance Committee and sometimes the full board to present. Is that planned for the end of this year as well?
We always plan it for December, yes.
Thank you.
We have supplemental appropriations. If you look at supplemental appropriations, we're looking at $700,000 for the rec center. This is in line with what Mr. O'Call was speaking about. The reason I chose $700,000 is because the parameters were given between $650,000 and $750,000. So, being the person I am, $700,000 just seemed like a good fit right there. $30,000 for Grant Us Hope. You approved Grant Us Hope last month, and now we're putting the appropriations on so that Dr. Kwok could use the funds. Fund-to-fund transfers. We have fund-to-fund transfers. They're closing the school store at Waite, so the monies are being moved into the principal's account. And also, it was spoken about to the board here that the city and the schools are looking at increasing the amount of monies going to the rec center by $10,000 a year over the next 5 years. The district moved $100,000 this year. I believe it was in December, and this just picks us up to the $110,000 for the year. Also, we have our 300 funds. These are our athletic funds. I tried to explain this to the board, and then I needed to give visuals to the board. The athletic funds on the old system that we had all rolled up into a 300,000 cost center. The new system, it rolls it up, but when you're spending money, it does not look at the roll-up at all. It looks at the individual account. And the monies are paid out of a 303,000 cost center. So what I'm doing with the transfers is moving all those monies that are receipted into the lower funds for football, for basketball, for volleyball, for, I forget what else was out there, up into that expenditure account, the 303,000. And finally, we have the request for carryover balances. This is an annual request that the state has allowed school districts to go up to $50,000, but again, I try to be conservative and don't let anybody else have our monies. And so we're looking at the annual request of $25,000 to remain with the ESC. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Okay, Mr. Sable. I am off tonight. I apologize. Board communication. If we want to go around the horn, board members have anything they'd like to share?
Yeah, I just want to congratulate the 6 teams that won conference championships, men's golf, men's and women's cross country just this weekend, women's volleyball, men's soccer, and the football team. Good wishes to all of them as they enter into tournament play, and particularly the men's golf team, which had a long afternoon last Monday because they weren't in, they were in, they weren't in, and they finally got the word that a player had been disqualified, so they got the 5th and final spot. I also want to wish senior Preston Trumpler the best. I mean, he's been a 4-year letter winner and the only senior on the team, so I hope he has a great weekend down there in Columbus. A couple weekends ago, Mr. Ross and I attended the dedication of the tennis courts, honoring the late coach John Kelly, who was an amazing coach, but more an amazing man. It was a wonderful ceremony, and special thanks to Dr. Qualick, Mr. Shields, and Mr. O'Cull for all their help that day. I will tell you that we put chairs out, and then as soon as someone stood up, Mr. O'Cull and Mr. Shields grabbed the chairs and put them on the rack to take them back. So if you stood, you lost your chair, but it was okay. The policy committee met, and we reviewed various policies that we will come before the board over the next few months. And I like to just say to the public, many of these policy changes are just words or a total elimination. It's nothing major or monumental. I mean, we get the advice from a group and we just act on those. So we're not changing policy willy-nilly. We are, on advice of council, basically. Reminder that the foundation is hosting the Harlem Wizards on November 10th. Tickets are available on the website. The Hall of Fame committee met, and we have the following individuals that are going to be inducted: Casey McCoy, Ken Alber, Anna Boyert, Brian Farron, Tracy Robinson Ruffin, and the 50-plus reunion committee. We also have, tonight, we're going to accept 2 custodial resignations for retirement, and just want to say to both of those individuals, it is an unsung job to be a head custodian. But they do an amazing job keeping the buildings safe and clean. And in particular at the high school, Mr. Stuckbauer, who I got to work with, an amazing individual, and he will be missed. I think he's retiring in February. And then just on a personal note, I do want to wish my mother a happy 91st birthday on Wednesday. If she doesn't kill herself in the meantime, because she just had 21 stitches the other day. So I do want to wish her a happy birthday, and I encourage you all to go vote. Voting is open right now, and it's very important. Thank you.
Gene, I feel like I have nothing to say after that.
Sorry.
No, admittedly, I've been trying to keep up a little bit on the stuff that's happening in the district. Unfortunately, our household has been hit by cold or whatever, and we've just been passing it back around in a circle the whole time. Part of the issue of having a super small house. But no, I had been keeping track on the athletics. I mean, we're at a great district for athletics. We graduate some astonishingly good athletes. I mean, we have people that are playing in professional sports. I expect nothing less than our kids to have really successful seasons, and we have a couple teams every year that even make the run for state. So that's awesome to see with our fall sports, just picking up the torch right where we left off last year, and even necessarily with like spring sports. And then just the general reminder for everyone that works in the district, thank you so much. You keep this place running. Staff, faculty, administration, teachers, students, because I won't forget students ever, because without students, there's no reason to be open. So thank you for everything you guys are doing day in, day out. And there was a curriculum committee meeting, but I don't have an update to give on that because I missed it because I was sick that day. So Becky will pick up with that, and that's about it for me.
Just want to echo what Gene said about the conference champions. It's a testament to our student athletes and our coaches who worked all summer. And the end result is winning these championships, and I just want to wish all those kids and the coaches the best of luck in the postseason. They're very deserving. And the golf thing was, like you said, down to the last second. It was pretty exciting. Congrats to the golfers. I also wanted to echo what a wonderful ceremony, and it was truly a wonderful dedication to Mr. Kelly and to his family. That was a great, thank you, Ryan and Jim Shields and Chris, putting that together. It was just unbelievable and very heartwarming. A lot of retired teachers who knew Mr. Kelly were there, and it was very nice to see everybody. And the signs look fantastic. If you go over to the tennis courts, those signs look really nice. So for a lot of years, people will be able to see that. The other thing is, Jean, Becky, and I attended the Northeast Ohio OSBA, Ohio School Board Association Conference, and that was in Wadsworth. And what was nice was our high school, Medina High School, received the Purple Star Award, which is an award given to buildings, by building, on how we, I guess, take care of military families. And Andy Brenner was there to receive that award. It was really nice to see Andy there and represent the high school. So congrats to our high school, to Elisa, and to Andy for applying for that. It was nice to be represented. So thank you. And lastly, congrats to our retirees. I mentioned Mr. Stuckbauer, as you did. I worked with his father. He was a detective in Brunswick on a couple cases, and Dad's retired now, so John's gonna join him and, I don't know, golf or whatever they like to do. So congrats. Run with you. Or that, or Rod. But congratulations to the Stuckbauer family. That's all I got.
Just a couple things. We had a facility committee meeting on October the 6th. There were some completed projects that they discussed, summer roof work, although Ryan told us that there's some repairs to be done to the Canavan roof because some thin set popped, so they have to come back and fix that. Parking lot paving, tennis courts. Some current projects being worked on are the building automation system that was with the HVAC and the ESSER funds. That's coming up. Cameras at the elementaries. They've got a OFCC security grant, I believe, for $500,000 to help with that. And I think that was between Bob, Ryan, and Craig that got that. So thanks for that. Good on that. The flagpole for the baseball, I think that was done. Mm-hmm. So you got a win there, Ryan. Some upcoming projects that were mentioned. One was the Diamond Bright, which Ryan already went over in nauseam. High school's having to replace a 1,400-gallon hot water tank that's leaking, which that's going to be a pretty major deal. And the city and the district are talking together about 2 pickleball courts at Root as a collaboration between the city and the district is a win-win, especially with the district being able to help with some space for pickleball, which I know is very, very popular now. So that was from the committee facility committee meeting. Took my son back to Ohio State this weekend and talked with one of his roommates, Alec Holthouse. And Medina was down at the Buckeye Invitational Marching Band competition at the Shoe this weekend. And it was nice because Alex was their tour guide around campus and nobody knew, not even Mr. Locker. So he arranged that. So that was kind of a nice thing, kind of cool. A lot of former Medina students were in town this week, or in Columbus this weekend for the competition, so that was kind of nice. And then I'd like to give a shout out to my employer, Plastipack. They donated and you have it on the donation list, 60 cases of bottled water for the Milt Place cross-country meet. They've done that the last couple of years. And I'd also like to give a thanks to Jeff Milam. His wife Susie works at the high school in the math department, but he allowed me to borrow his flatbed trailer so I could go pick up the 60 cases of bottled water and park them in my garage for a couple days. So, the meet was, I talked to the cross-country coaches, and there was like 2,400 plus runners out at Ella Canavan all day long, plus an elementary race at the very end of the day, which was, there was a lot of elementary kids out there running, so it was fun to be out there, even though my kids aren't in it anymore. So, but anyways, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. All that I will really add is that Joe had mentioned the curriculum committee. We met last week, I think it was, and Mrs. Cassie presented the report card overview that the board saw this evening. Mr. Sable presented a redistricting update similar to this evening, and Mrs. Christina Hammond presented a high school ELA adoption, which the board will probably be seeing soon. Next month, thank you, Mrs. Cassidy, at the November meeting, and then it'll be available for 30 days for public review, and then the board to approve that in December, if it so desires. I also would like to thank Mr. West. He's being modest. He helped mow the cross-country course and has done that for several years.
I mowed the whole thing myself.
Yes, so thank you for doing that. I know the coaches appreciate that, as did the runners, I'm sure, as well. So thank you very much. Now we've reached the point in our agenda, or our meeting, and our agenda for public participation. No one has requested to speak to the board, so we will waive the rules for public comment and move on to action items for the treasurer. Mr. Chambers, when you're ready.
Yes, if it pleases the board, item number 1, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the September 22 Treasurer's Financial Report. Item number 2, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the permanent appropriations for the 22-23 school year. We have the Rec Center Fund, we have Medina Center, or Media Center at Northrop, we have the Grant Us Hope Robotics Clubs. These are startups at both Claggett and Root, American Sign Language Club, Link Crew at MHS, and Title III LEP. This is grant that we get on a yearly basis, and depending on how much we get from the state, it either is through the CCIP, or I believe we use ESC for it. Is it Summit ESC? Can't do. Northeast Ohio ESC, sorry about that. We have our number 3 is recommended the Board of Education approve the following fund-to-fund transfers: general fund to the rec center, as discussed, and Waite School Store closing to Waite Principal Fund, and the 3,000 funds into the 300,000 account. And finally, it is recommended the Board of Education elect to receive the automatic refund amount for fiscal year 21-22 and maintain a carryover balance of $25,000 with the Educational Service Center of Medina County.
I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer action items G1 through G4.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. West. Thank you, Mr. Ross. Any questions or comments from the board regarding these action items?
Mr. Chambers, the action item G2, the rec center funds, is that all our funds, or are those funds that the city is going to reimburse some of us for? 50%, I believe.
We have to pay for everything up front and then be reimbursed the 50% after the payments are made.
Just wanted to clarify that it was going to be 50% of it was going to be reimbursed.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, Mr. Chambers?
Yes, Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sable.
First item up is donations. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations to Medina City Schools. Every month, it absolutely amazes me the generosity that we have within our community and the support from all of our organizations, whether it's our music boosters, athletic boosters, and PTOs. But several here for several $1,000s for PBIS, the cases of water for the Milt Place Festival, to hygiene products for students. So I really thank everybody for their support of our students in our district. Number two, it is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the Job Ready, Life Ready curriculum for intensive needs students at Medina High School. This curricular adoption is for special education students and has been presented to the curriculum committee and was presented to the board at last month's meeting and has been available for public review. Number three is a service agreement. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreement. This is for nursing services for the Medina Christian Academy. So this is not a cost to the district. These are pass-through funds. And number four is field trips. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following overnight field trips in compliance with Policy 2340. Both of these are for the boys basketball team. They have traditionally taken overnight trips right around Thanksgiving as well as around the winter break. This year they're looking at going to Pickerington, Ohio, as well as Chicago.
I make a motion to approve action items H 1 through 4.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Any questions or comments from the board regarding these
I only
four
have one
action items?
question. The golf field trip this week, have they done it yet? Okay.
Mr. Sable, just to remind everyone as well, the basketball field trips, those are not paid with district funds. They're used boosters or fundraising efforts the team makes. Is that true?
That's correct. Yeah, and typically what you'll see with state tournaments and things like that is they'll come in the month after and they're pre-approved through Dr. Qualick and myself, just because we don't know whether they're coming or not.
Just one comment on the Job Ready, Life Ready program. I think it's what was presented is fantastic program. Thank you for working with Mina and moving that forward. I think it's going to be great, and the kids are going to be a big beneficiary of that, so thank you.
Thank you. The only thing I wanted to comment on is regarding donations. The one thing it's difficult to put a dollar amount on is people's time, and I know we have a lot of the volunteers in the district, whether it be through the boosters, PTOs, parents volunteering at the cross country festival this past weekend. There's so many things going on. Concession stands are run by volunteers, so I do want to recognize that we do appreciate everyone's efforts. The district is important to a lot of people, and we appreciate them sharing their time as well. And if there's no other questions or comments, Mr. Chambers, if you will call roll, please.
Yes, Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last item is personnel. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following personnel recommendations pending completion of all required paperwork per the Director of Human Resources. There is an administrative contract adjustment on here. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following administrative contract adjustments based on comparable salary data for similar positions in peer school districts. The first one is for the Director of Pupil Services, and the second one is for Food Service Supervisor. In addition, I am recommending an annuity adjustment for Principal on Assignment at Claggett. This is because there's an adjustment to this contract, a longer period of contract with coverages from the previous elementary contract that Ms. Halleck had previously served, and that would be a one-year adjustment. And then it's already been mentioned in here, our head custodians that are putting in for retirement. These two individuals are going to be a big loss to our district. I know that they're, I'm sure, looking forward to getting some time on their own. However, I hope Jim is already recruiting them to come back and sub for us. I have no doubt that he is. But really, they are unsung heroes in our district, and they are going to be educators that are missed. And I have had the opportunity to work directly with them, and I appreciate that, all that they have done for our students and our staff.
Make a motion to approve action item J, personnel.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Nichols.
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard.
Aye.
Mr. West.
Yes.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye. Thank you. That adjourns our meeting for this evening. There's no executive session, and I hope everyone drives safely out there. Thank you.